per hour. A lot of us like that aspect. Over to you, Dave.
Matt, thanks. Topping our news today, some employees of a local restaurant chased down a man who stole their tip jar last night. Police say the employees were actually about to give him a free meal, but apparently that wasn't enough. Pam Anguanio says it all started with a good deed. She saw the man coming up to the restaurant saying he was extremely hungry, so she was going to get some free food, and that's when he took the tip jar and ran with it. She ran after him, knocked the jar out of his hand, but he kept running. Someone nearby saw all of the commotion and called police, who quickly caught up with the would-be thief.
Dropped the tip jar on the ground, took off running, and they took off after him. I called police, and they caught up to him down the street, and he was denying everything. But I mean, I saw him drop the tip jar. He had it in his hands.
He could have sat down, ate his food, drank his water, and gone on his way. And what upset me was that he tricked me. He tricked me.
Police did let that man off with just a warning. Officers also on the lookout for two men who recently robbed a pawn shop. This is surveillance video from the break-in that happened just after 3:30 yesterday morning at the Easy Pawn on the 5800 block of Weber. The video shows the suspects breaking into the store, then breaking the glass display counter, eventually getting away in a dark-colored SUV with an undetermined amount of jewelry from that shop. If you have any information about the crime, you're asked to please call Crime Stoppers 888-TIPS. Well, as the financial problems for the city of Corpus Christi continue, we're continuing our investigation into where your tax dollars are going. We now have a look at the city legal department. Even though the city has 16 attorneys on staff, it spends millions of dollars on outside legal assistance. Our Stephen Romo has more in this 6 News in-depth report.
The city's legal department doesn't seem like a small operation, with its staff of nearly 24 made up of attorneys and legal assistants. But even with this fleet of lawyers, we've uncovered millions spent on outside law firms working on city matters. We brought up this issue to City Attorney Carlos Valdez. He didn't want to speak to us on camera, but he did respond by email saying the number of cases and issues that the city is involved in alone requires additional legal assistance.
It's a waste of money when we got lawyers, attorneys that supposedly graduated from law school that can't do the job they were hired to do.
Jack Gordy is with the Taxpayers Association. He says he spent years trying to get answers from the city on its spending for outside legal work. Over the past 5 years, the city has spent over $3 million on the extra legal help. In fact, Valdez tells us he believes that figure is considerably higher now. That's alongside the $1 million paid yearly to the city's 16 staff attorneys. We took our questions to Assistant City Manager Oscar Martinez.
Does that mean that the legal staff that we have is not qualified for all these cases?
That's a fair question, but I don't think that that's what it means at all. We're trying to remain as flexible as possible in our legal representation and actually to continue to protect the city and to try to do it the most cost-effective way.
Martinez says to keep attorneys on staff for all of the cases would actually end up costing the city more. Gordy disagrees, saying the city shouldn't need both an on-staff legal team and millions in additional help.
If they're not qualified, we don't need them. I mean, and there's some of them down there that I've asked questions to, and I've seen them in action, that I wouldn't hire them if I got a speeding ticket.
We asked Valdez what he would say to a citizen like Gordy concerned with the city's spending on the outside legal help. He told us, quote, I would ask him if he had any idea how many cases and legal issues the city was involved with at any given time. I would ask him whether he knew what types of matters the outside counsel handled. Finally, I would ask him to give me an estimate on the number of lawyers he believed the city would need to hire to produce the work that is accomplished by outside counsel.
Well, if they got money to give away, I'll give them my address and phone number. They can call me, and I'll take it. That's what they're doing. They're just giving money.
Stephen Romo, KRIS 6 News.
Here's some more details. The city is not required to bid out legal work, which means it can hire whoever it wants at whatever cost. Most of the more than $3 million paid in outside legal fees over the last 5 years went to a pair of firms, Canales and Simonson, and McKibben, Woolsey, and Villarreal. CCISD transportation officials say they review school bus videos on a daily basis to make sure their drivers are paying attention to the road. And as 6 News learned, a handful of drivers have been cited for using cell phones while they're driving. One driver was accused of covering up a camera, then using her phone, not wearing her seatbelt, and rolling through a stop sign. Another was cited for falling asleep on the job. The district says its use of bus cameras helps keep drivers on their toes and helps control other problems like bullying and fighting on the buses. There's some extra eyes watching our streets, at least for now. The Corpus Christi Police Department testing out small lapel cameras that will be used out in the field. Saturday night, a few officers started wearing these cameras that will record what officers see and hear out on the streets. The police department will test these cameras for a few more months before making a recommendation to Chief Riggs.
What we want to do is see, is this some type of technology that we would ever want to use, as opposed to maybe an in-car camera video capturing solution.
State News Now House and Senate negotiators have approved the Texas budget for the next 2 years, sending that plan to the full chambers for consideration. The panel agreed today on a $172.5 billion plan that makes about $15 billion in cuts compared to current spending. Money for schools is contingent on lawmakers agreeing on new distribution formulas. Those discussions could push lawmakers into a special session if they don't come up with a plan soon. 4 days after taking a direct hit from an EF5 tornado, the city of Joplin, Missouri continues to search for those who are missing, but time to find survivors is running out. NBC's Brian Moore has the latest from Joplin.
Before they can begin the long, expensive rebuilding process, the people of Joplin, Missouri are salvaging what they can of the life they once knew. For this young man, a Valentine's Day card from his girlfriend was the reward for long hours of searching.
You know, small things like that that sometimes don't seem irreplaceable. They just mean more to you than, you know, a TV.
The most critical search, the search for survivors, is winding down, but officials are not giving up.
We feel like we've made an effort as much as possible to find everyone, but we will not stop searching.
Today at Ground Zero, everywhere you look, there are signs of just how powerful this storm was. A pickup truck guillotined by a piece of plywood. This debris pile, it used to be a phone store and a pizza shop. This bathroom was one man's salvation.
He ran into my bathroom, shut the door, and honestly, he said he started making his peace because he thought it was his time.
But it wasn't. One more tale of survival from the terrible twister. There are estimates that rebuilding this community could take tens of billions of dollars, but how long it will take, no one can say. Brian Moore, NBC News, Joplin, Missouri.
Meanwhile, several tornadoes also touched down in central Indiana yesterday, causing a lot of damage there. At least 6 people were injured in Bloomington, where several mobile homes were ripped to pieces. The roof was torn off of dozens of homes, and others were reduced to piles of debris. A double-wide trailer was flipped on its side and the floor torn off the bottom. More than 30,000 residents in 45 counties across the state are also without power. President Obama is busy spending the day attending meetings at the G8 summit in France. The president arrived this morning, and since then he's been meeting with leaders from the world's 8 largest economies. Leaders from Britain, Canada, Japan, Italy, Germany, Russia, France, and the European Union all attending the meeting. Middle Eastern and Arab leaders are also scheduled to attend the summit in order to discuss the ongoing demonstrations and revolutions in some cases in many of their countries. Leaders are also expected to discuss multiple economic issues as well as global security. And the number of houses in foreclosure comprised a larger percentage of first quarter home sales. According to RealtyTrack, sales of homes in some stage of foreclosure accounted for 28% of all residential sales in the first quarter of 2011, which is up 1% from the fourth quarter of 2010, and it's the highest percentage of sales over the past year. The average sales price for a property in foreclosure was a little more than $168,000, or almost 27% below the average sales price of a home that's not in foreclosure.